Hey everyone, and welcome back to the news. Has anything actually happened? Why is there news? Well, yes, there's actually a bunch of really cool stuff, really cool lore, and there's one pretty nice addition to the game. But first, there's only 2 days left for this month's warrior-themed Patreon. There's also a big sticker that comes with this as well. So yeah, if you're interested in this, they'll no longer be available as of tomorrow night, and this wave of things will post off the following week. So that's the warrior. It was a super fun one to work on from the art direction side, and there's a lot more where that came from in the future. And I also just posted a bit of a vlog behind the scenes on our thumbnailing process over there as well, and a big thank you to them for their support of the channel. So let's get into the news. We'll kick it off with Boa Tokens. Yeah, this is actually pretty good news. Blizzard have found another use for Seafarer's doubloons. In patch 8.1.5, the vendors will now sell BOA quality little item tokens, and that means you can mail them over to your alts. They cost 20 doubloons each, and they can actually upgrade to a rare or an epic upon use, and they're available for your gloves, bracers, waist, legs, boots, and cloaks, so it is actually covering a few slots that are not covered by heirlooms. Now, this will be a great boost for just some of your leveling characters, but of course, I've been thinking about it more from a level 111 twinking perspective, because you could fish for a Titanforge 111 of one of these tokens. Now, Mythic Antorus drops eye level 220, meaning that an epic one of these would be more powerful, perhaps, assuming scaling isn't wonky, than some of that Antorus gear. And that could allow for some even more powerful 111 twinks, which would of course be really good for soloing dungeons like Freehold super fast, as well as maybe easily farming up island expeditions for level boosting. So there you go, there's that. But still, it's mostly just nice to see Blizzard, you know, give players reasons to care about the resources they earn in game. Yeah, the more the merrier. I'd love to see some more stuff be added to the service medals, or to have the service medals come from more content. But there you go, that's the gameplay stuff. Next, we've got to talk about the lore. Yeah. The final boss of Crucible of Storms entered testing, and it's a pretty damn big one. It's really one of the largest lore teases that we've got in a long time, and this is just all on top of there being really strong old god lore as of late as well. We've got characters popping up in cutscenes, we've got the ancient relics to decipher, and a few pretty creepy parallels. And let's start off with that, the parallels. Unat, the Speaker. That's the final boss. But do you know who also has the title The Speaker? Magni Bronzebeard. Now, I'm not going to say this parallel means that Magni is directly evil or anything, but it does show that this guy, Unat, a pawn of N'Zoth, having that title, is, you know, kind of hinting at Magni being a bit of a pawn himself, which of course does go back to that old god line, the King of Diamonds has been made a pawn. Now, it's slightly telling that Unat's name actually changed from Harbinger of the Void to Speaker pretty recently, and doing so, to be honest, for me, it just feels like it's the writers having a bit of fun with us, and because of, you know, the nature of all this Lovecraft stuff, I actually do enjoy it when the writers are getting a little bit playful with things like that. But next up, we've got the fact that N'Zoth is seemingly there. I mean, he even talks to us. The whole room is like stunning. You fall into this big deep chamber below the earth, and that's where we find Unat and a massive glowing eye, a growth of N'Zoth. It's all incredibly impressive and exciting, but what gets more interesting is actually the lore, because what's in that room? Well, what's in that room is the 3 relics from the Xal'atath questline, which we of course hand deliver into that chamber earlier on. Now, there are a few different angles in this whole thing, because originally we were told that those Naga were supposed to hunt down those relics and use them to create a massive storm that would damage Kul'Tiras. Well, we defeat the Naga, we collect the relics, and then we bring them straight to N'Zoth, where he gives us the gift of N'Zoth in that cutscene, which of course we covered earlier. So we brought those artifacts there. We then return to the raid, and we find that the Cabal, the first bosses, are using them. So we defeat the Cabal, we take up the artifacts, and then we use them to fight Unat. More importantly, we fight him while literally being watched by a big eye. Then, as Wowhead pointed out, well, when we die, Unat says that we are unworthy. But if we defeat him, he then says, "Master, they are worthy, all shall be awakened." What does that mean? It means that this is a test. This fight is a test. Through the fight, we keep on channeling the powers of Void, Storm, and Ocean through those relics to fight Unat, who himself is clearly extremely powerful, and it's all being watched by N'Zoth. And then what's even more crazy about all this is that 2 of the relics we get to keep. Right, the Trident and the Void Stone are player-equipable items that drop from the final boss, but here's the thing, the Helm is mysteriously not found on loot tables. Now, then a lot of people combine that with N'Zoth saying, the veil wanes, his crown will open the way, and with that, and this missing helm, we sure do have a mystery on our hands. But first, there's something we need to talk about with these relics, because the Void Stone is void, but the others are ocean and tempest. Well, that basically means the elements of water and air. Now, that's fairly interesting because void is fundamentally different to water and air, with one of them being one of the two most fundamental forces, void. Air and water, though, they're like Azerothian elements, right? They're elements that have existed for an extremely long time as well. Like when the old gods arrived on the planet, they the elements banded together and attempted to fight them back. But that was unsuccessful, and the elements became enslaved. Then, of course, more recently, Alakir and Ragnaros sided with Deathwing, and they were defeated, with Thunderan and Smolderon being the new elemental lords of air and fire. Then, of course, the 4 elemental lords worked together with us to defeat the Legion, but as we know, defeating the Legion was also part of the old gods' plan, because they want Azeroth as well, so we can't really take that to mean too much. Basically, though, what I'm saying here is I find it odd that we're using void along with water and air. And I don't want to read too much into it, but I guess we are just seeing the Void interact with some of the fundamental elements of Azeroth, and that just seems a little bit worrisome that we're getting this combination of things. When you look at the relics, well, it's weird. The helm, to me, kind of looks like Thunderan's crown with that blue gem in it. Like, it's a different shape because he's an air elemental, but still, scale issues be damned, right? Because we can wield Thunder Fury, which is his sword. Then as for the trident, you could really tie that to Neptulon, who is, of course, named after Neptune, the Roman god of the sea, who is quite well known for his trident. As for the Void Stone, well, the Void Stone's really spooky because the item description of it just says this: a smooth stone filled with a swirling cloud of void that constantly shifts, drawing your eyes to try to focus and discern the horrifying images within. You feel a sense of unease holding the stone. Yeah, totally nondescript, but certainly not a good thing for us to claim as a reward after this fight and then just carry around the place. And of course, N'Zoth is watching us fight Unat. He earlier gave us the gift of N'Zoth, as I covered in a video. He then sees us pick up these powerful artifacts, with one of them being void-related. And then he says the crown will open the way. And then we gotta wonder, what crown? Well, is he referring to the Tempest Crown relic that we brought into his chamber? Well, I actually speculate that that could be Thunderan's. That actually might be a bit of a stretch. I kind of doubt the Thunderan's going to be that important in the story. But the crown, like, it's clearly not N'Zoth's, whatever he's referring to, right? After all, it'd be a bit strange for N'Zoth to talk about himself in that way. And that means we need to sort of analyze this crown line a bit more. So, the veil wanes, his crown will open the way. The line is spoken by N'Zoth. Whenever N'Zoth says his crown, he's not referring to himself, he's referring to someone else's crown. So, yeah, we then see the Tempest Crown, right? One of the relics. We retrieved the Tempest Crown earlier on in the questing under Xal'atath's guidance, and it's actually known as the Tempest Collar, and it's fallen into the hands of Atal Gral, who is a massive Makura, a crab person. Now, this all happens because we find Xal'atath as a blade, we take her to an altar, and that all happens because we find these Naga orders to seize a whole bunch of artifacts. Now, after feeding Xal'atath some tasty souls to get her energy back up, she tells us that the Naga were there to get 3 relics, one of Void, one of Storm, and one of Ocean. Well, the Void Stone is clearly the Void one, the Trident is, the Ocean one, it's even called the Trident of Deep Ocean, and then, the Tempest Collar is, of course, the Storm one. And that all seemingly makes sense, but then you're wondering, what is Storm? What is Ocean? Well, they're fundamentally different to the Void, as I said. Again, you look at the Cosmic Forces chart, you see that Void, one of the 2 cosmic forces of the universe, but, air and water, they're like in the middle, they're the Azerothian things. And then, of course, as I also mentioned in this video, the elements and the Void working together are not new things. The Azerothian elements, yeah, they opposed the old gods, but they eventually did submit. Ragnaros and Alakir, of course, old god aligned. We killed them for that reason. Of course, Therazane and Neptulon, they did side with us even all the way back then. So basically, with a few of these relics being tied to those elements, I kind of see it as being like stolen elemental power, and I doubt the elemental lords will be happy about that. Now, while there's nothing to suggest it for now, remember that N'Zoth is the god of the deep, who has been fighting N'Zoth for the longest time out of all the elemental lords. It's Neptulon. So if an elemental was to be corrupted, it probably would be Neptulon. And then you have to wonder, well, having a bit more control over the elements would be really useful if you are trapped deep in the earth. So that's another reason why I'm wondering, why is N'Zoth trying to get his hands on these powerful relics? And if he's got this powerful water one and he's got this powerful air one, has he also been hunting down a fire one or an earth one? I think it could actually be kind of likely. But anyway, getting back to the crown line. So yeah, as I said, that crown could be Thunderand, which is a massive stretch. I think, actually. I mean, they look similar, but I still think it's a stretch. Now, there are many lines about, say, Anduin Wrynn, referring to him as a boy king. Of course, he wears a crown. There could be the Helm of Domination. That could indicate that the Lich King's actions could do something. Magni, of course, also wears a crown. Then I guess the final thing to piece together is, what was N'Zoth's actual plan? Because he tried to get the Naga to get all of these artifacts together. And when you think about it, a big Tempest that also, you know, sort of a big air and water storm that is then fueled by the void, that seems like an extremely dangerous thing. But it's then also really clear that N'Zoth, while he did have that plan for the big storm, that of course his Naga were executing, well, he also had us kill those Naga and claim the artifacts and bring the artifacts to him. Now, I hope you see that this is a bit odd, because these plans are somewhat at odds with each other. Now, it could be that if the Naga were able to kill us, then he would essentially think, well, those, you know, adventurers clearly weren't worthy, so we'll proceed ahead with the storm plan anyway. And, you know, he gets storm out of it, damages Kul'Tiras, it's good for him. Or if we are able to defeat the Naga and, you know, deposit those artifacts with him, then he thinks, okay, well, this would cost me the storm, I wouldn't get that, but I would get these artifacts in the hands of these adventurers, and I should be able to use those artifacts to corrupt them, especially with, say, the Void Stone. It could be something like that. I'll admit right now, the plan does seem a little bit strange. Like, I will have my henchmen grab all of these things and then create a massive storm to hurt my enemies with, but at the same time, I will have my special agent, Xal'atath, kill all of my henchmen, take the things that they were doing, and then take them to me. Right now, it doesn't 100% add up, and I imagine it's more because it's a part of a developing story. And then finally, what's up with that room? Are we actually inside N'Zoth? What's actually going on? Well, this is actually a good lesson. The old gods are massive in scale. They're not planet-sized like a Titan, of course, but they are massive in the scheme of things. What we fought of Yogg-Saron and Cthulhu, just a tiny manifestation, a small outgrowth. Why are they so small? Well, both old gods were still, like, imprisoned, basically. They weren't able to use anything near their full strength. Well, with the Crucible of Storm's raid, you see we fall really deep into that chamber in the earth, into what is likely another outgrowth of N'Zoth. You've got to remember that these things are so deeply ingrained into the planet that ripping them out of the planet severely damages it, to the point where doing it again after getting rid of Y'Sharj would have killed Azeroth. That's just how big N'Zoth is, and I mean, what we see there is just one tiny part of him. Now, of course, we'll need to see how Blizzard actually represent the entity that we fight at some stage. It seems like that'll be a massive challenge, both artistically and in creating a viable boss fight. But yeah, like, if you were to say that Azeroth is an orange, imagine getting a bunch of, like, bunched up wire and kind of threading it into the orange, such that if you pull that wire out, like, a big chunk of the orange would go and it would be a dead orange. Not the best analogy ever, but that's kind of a way to see the scale of the old gods. And then finally, we have a quick update about the Zandalari allied race stuff, which more importantly gives us some lore. So during the Zandalari allied race questline, Talanji has to prove herself to the various Loa. Guess who that also means though? Bomsamdi. And he offers to release her from her pact if she brings him Sylvanas' head. Now, we've already known that Bomsamdi does not like Sylvanas, with him being really angry over basically how she keeps the souls of the things that she kills, and he jokes about how he's been wanting a war chief's soul for a long time. Of course, he should have one. He should have Vol'jin's soul, but as we know, spooky things are afoot with Vol'jin's soul, meaning that that's not the case. Now, while the official proceedings are going on, it's just another tidbit, we actually do see Vol'jin standing over her throne. But what does all this mean with Bomsamdi asking for Sylvanas' head? Well, we know that many of the death entities don't like her. This somewhat shows us that Sylvanas doesn't really serve death, and I have to wonder if that suggests that Sylvanas is somewhat of a rogue character. It could be that the Void Whispers that Illyria heard during the comic just assumed that she stood for death, the ultimate enemy, but that simply was not true. After all, the Void does see all possibilities, but it's not really great at telling what one will be true. As for Sylvanas' soul and Bomsamdi wanting it, it could be a bit different, it could be a bit special. Something could have happened to Sylvanas whenever she got impaled on the Azerite, or on the Saronite after she fell from Ice Crown. But then it could also just be that, you know, he kind of simply just wants her dead.
Now, of course, this is in line with what a lot of we know of other characters. Bomsamdi does not like her, but at least we know that, now know that he is committed to seeing her go. Sylvanas, though, she may be allied with Helya, and that kind of would make sense because they do have a pact. And it makes you wonder, will there be a split in the forces of death, with the likes of Bomsamdi and the Lich King trying to preserve the balance of things and kind of fill their role, but then the more ambitious Helya and Sylvanas trying to take over. Certainly that would make for an interesting B story while we, go to fight in Azeroth. We have this stuff happening with death. Certainly, I think there's a lot more to look into with Sylvanas and Helya, and just the fact that Bomsamdi actively wants her dead now. I know he's a bit of a trickster. I know he's the sort of person that will, be a bit of a chancer, but it's interesting, right? Where this whole death storyline will go. There are so many pieces aligning. I feel like every 2 or 3 weeks something new is revealed that again expands the death stuff. And that's without even a solid confirmation of the likes of Muzala, which again could be really big as well. So yeah, it's pretty all with Sylvanas. I think she's probably going to split off on her own and be a very self-directed character, maybe working with Helya or something like that. I don't think she's just going to be killed off, and I don't think she's just going to turn into a pawn in Azeroth, even though she does end up with a Black Blade of the Empire, which certainly is a fairly risky thing to be walking around with. But there you go anyway. That is a update on a bunch of lore stuff that I think is very interesting. Just seeing representation of the scale of Azeroth is so damn cool, so that was really cool to see. And yeah, I really like how the B plots are going. Might not love the A plot, but I'll tell you what, the B plot, all these, the old god stuff, the Azeroth stuff, I think that's a lot of fun, and it's great to see them expand it. So thank you for watching this very late and odd edition of the news that is so late because I went home for the weekend. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the lore. Let me know what you think about all those things down below. And with that, I will see you next time.
Thank you.